ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wiley Drake, and you see me not on the camera, but behind the camera today. You hear me, and I have two guests on there, Stephen Davis, who's a regular, and we have one irregular. We have the hitchhiker, James L. McCullough. And fellas, y'all are live on television. Mr. Davis, why don't you take care of the introduction, and then you guys banter back and forth or whatever you'd like to do the show. So, as they say in Hollywood, just up the road, it's showtime.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very interesting edition of the Wiley Drake Show. This is the second half of afternoon shows. We did a prayer conference from 4 to 5, and then we had to go talk to Mother Nature for a bit, and then we have returned, so we're going to pick up from here. The main thing that we're going to be doing tonight is talking about what your duties are about getting out and getting voting and making sure that all your friends and fellow Christians vote, and getting onto social media and making sure they all vote. We have postulated, if you like that as a fancy word, that failure to vote is a sin. You have a duty to vote. And if you don't do the duty and you allow how do I say this not so politely? If you allow a daughter of Satan to get elected because you didn't vote, yeah, I'll say that's a sin. And I certainly am not a fan of Hillary Rotten Clinton, that's for sure. And if I was walking down the street and I saw her being mugged and the Secret Service were in having a hot dog where she was being mugged, would I keep walking? Man, let me tell you, that'd be a moral dilemma that I just hope I never have to face, because I'd sure be tempted to keep walking while she was getting mugged. But that's neither here nor there. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to put the burden on my co-host tonight, and I know I shouldn't do this, and he'll probably talk nasty about my dog afterwards, but as you can tell, Hitchhiker has a little bit better tan than I do. He also has more hair than I do, and we are not going to go there, because I ain't going to talk about how jealous I am of his hair, but be that as it may. But we keep hearing this social media rumor that somehow or another that Hillary Rotten Clinton is a better choice for our African American, black members of the community, that somehow or another she is going to be more representative of them than Trump is. And yet I'm starting to hear rumors in a little background that we elected this Barry Soetoro, aka Obama. He, because he's half black, was supposed to help solve this race issue and make things better, and we don't seem to be seeing that. So what I'm going to impose upon our co-host is it true that we were hoping that Obama was going to fix racial issues and he hasn't done it? And do you have any thoughts, opinions on whether or not Hillary would help in trying to smooth over any racial issues we may be having?
Unfortunately, as we come together, we find ourselves looking at an office or a position in government that's trying to do what we should turn over and let God take care of. And unfortunately, too many of our people that know our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ are not taking a stand or speaking up for what God would have done in this nation. I especially feel pitiful about our military, especially our veterans, who have went and took a stand and fought for this nation to have the freedom that we have, that God has allowed us, and now we've turned our backs on it by many of them not voting and other ones not coming up to the forefront to take that stand that is necessary to make a difference. Unfortunately, we have a few people out here that, whether it be across the network or Facebook or whatever, that are making comments and sharing the truth but people making the opposite comments, saying they're outrageous, they're too forward, and this type of thing. And so what we need to do is open our eyes and realize, what would God have us to do? And then so being obedient to Him and following the path that He would have us to take. In so doing, then our nation will come back to God and do what is necessary to stay a nation under God. But instead, we've done just the opposite, from taking the prayer out of schools, from not wanting children to be with their families, to killing babies, you name it. We've taken that direction and then cannot understand why we are not being blessed.
And that's an interesting issue, ladies and gentlemen. I was very disturbed to learn that there now is an organization on the web that is called freedomfromreligion.org. That bothers me immensely. It was never the forefathers or founding fathers' intent to separate God from the Constitution or God from the country. Their limitation under freedom of religion was extremely narrow. So if anybody starts talking about, well, the First Amendment rights means we don't have to have nothing to do with God. No, that's not what the First Amendment was about. What the First Amendment was first that the government was not going to force a religion on you. One of the unusual things that people aren't aware of is we currently have a Queen of England, and she's been queen now for 60 years, I believe it is. And what a lot of people don't realize is not only is she the, quote, Queen of England, but she is also the head of the Anglican Church. So she has both a religious title, she is the Anglican Church's equivalent of a pope, if you want to use that term, in addition to be the Queen of England. And that's what happened, is that when Henry VIII had a problem with not liking the various wives he was getting and not getting the boy that he wanted from them, and he kept either knocking them off or marrying other ones, and he tried to get a divorce, and the Roman Catholic Church said, nah, we don't go for that. He said, okay, great, I'll just start my own religion. And so the Anglican Church was a result of that Henry VIII not liking the Pope, saying you can't have a divorce. Interesting bit of history there. So when the founding fathers, who were aware of this history, what they said is guess what? The government is not going to force a religion on you. Okay, that's the Establishment Clause, and I'm happy. They also said, and you can practice the religion that you want to practice. Okay, that's the Practice Clause. I'm happy with that. Unfortunately, somehow or another, this separation of church and state has come out, and that's not what was intended. Not ever what was to be intended. When you have founding documents that refer to the Creator, and you have the Federalist Papers that talk about how all rights are God-given rights, and why we have them, and why the mere lowly government doesn't have the power to change God-given rights, and that's what drives the Democrats and the atheists and the libertarians crazy. They don't want to think that there's somebody more omnipotent, more powerful than they are, and that's why they play this game. But I can tell you 100%, guess what? There is a God. He's part of America. We are a Christian nation, and you can look, and if you want to spend an evening Googling stuff, put in United States of America, comma, Christian nation, and after about the 300th Google hit that you get on that, you're going to get the understanding of this. Where Obama is alleged, magic words, alleged to have said that, oh, the Muslims helped establish this country, and the Muslims are so important in the United States, my response to that is not no, but blank no. Ain't the way it was. And I happen to have sitting next to me a former active duty member of the Marine Corps. They never stopped being Marines. He's just not on active duty right at the moment. So I'm going to put a little interesting burden on him, because I love doing this, because this is the first time I get to pick on him on camera, so it's way too much fun. Mr. Marine, could you please tell our audience what the first line of the Marine Corps hymn is?
From the halls of Montezuma
To
the shores of Tripoli.
Okay, here's why that's important, ladies and gentlemen. The shores of Tripoli refers to the fact that the Barbary Coast pirates, Muslims, were stopping U.S. ships and taking slaves off of U.S. ships. And the United States of America said, guess what? We don't like that. And so what they did is they loaded a bunch of ships up with Marines, and they went over and they kicked the derriere of the Barbary pirates over in the Mediterranean and put an end to that. So the very first act of war that we as the United States had once the Revolutionary War was over was to go kick the derriere of a bunch of Muslim Barbary pirates. So for Obama to look into a camera and lie to you saying that the Muslims had something to do with the establishment of this country, my response to him is yeah, because they got the Marines organized so we could go kick their derrieres, and that's why the Marines became the rapid response force that they are, and why America can kick people's derrieres, because we have the Marine Corps. Obama, who has never served in the military, knows nothing about it, has probably never done a push-up in his life, certainly has never run an obstacle course, doubt very seriously he's ever qualified on an M16, and I can say a few other things that we won't go to. But the bottom line is that trying to rewrite history is not going to work, because thank goodness, not only do we have the Bible, which gives us the guidelines of what we're supposed to do, but thank goodness we now have the internet and search engines, and any lie you tell, we can immediately Google it and find out, oh my goodness, it's a lie. Look at the fact that we are now dealing with 650,000 emails. You couldn't read 650,000 emails in a year. And yet they're saying, oh, well, 8 days and we were able to read them and there was nothing there to see, and so we're going to let Hillary walk and we're not going to worry about her. Somebody is lying. And they're picking on poor Hassan, White WikiLeaks, saying, well, he didn't really have anything. No, he has something, just nobody's paying attention to it. And so that's why that's so sad. So as a result of this, what we need to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we need to say a prayer to the fact that we are a Christian nation.
Amen.
That we are secondary to the Holy Bible, secondary to the will of God, that Jesus Christ is our representative, if you want to use that political word, between us and God. So his job as the representative is to argue our case for us with him. So whether you want to consider him a representative or a religious attorney, I haven't figured out which is best yet, but we'll think about that for a little bit. And that it is that religious foundation and religious strength that is what made America great. And one of the things that I'm starting to hear a lot about, and if you all haven't seen it, I will admit I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to, is if you have not seen the movie Hacksaw Ridge. And what that was is we had an extremely religious gentleman who, during World War II, wanted to join the military. And the problem is, because of his religious beliefs, he couldn't shoot a rifle. He just, sorry, can't do it. That's an act of violence. I just can't do it. However, I do want to be a medic. So I will go take care of people that have been injured. And the course of the movie, he was unbelievably harassed. They didn't want him. They were calling him a chicken, a coward, a traitor. I mean, they were really badly picking on him. Well, he winds up on the island of Okinawa, and a horrendous battle happens, and bad things really happen. And he, without touching a firearm, was able to save the lives of 75 soldiers. And his bravery was so unbelievable that he wound up winning the Medal of Honor. So what we have is a military man. He's a member of the Army, so I'll have to apologize to our Marine here, who was a member of the Army. But without touching a firearm, he won the Medal of Honor. That's a pretty good story. And that is an excellent showing of a work of faith in regards to what has happened. And so should we see that movie? Absolutely. It's a little late now to see Hillary's America. Should have seen that. That was the D'Souza's story. Very good story. But if you have any doubt whatsoever of whether or not voting for Hillary is a really bad idea, go ahead and Google the crimes of Hillary Clinton and see what you come up with. Any thoughts on any of that stuff?
I think one of the things that we're truly blessed to be able to have the electronic equipment that is necessary to communicate. Even think back when Pastor Wiley be talking about the party line and the way it used to be. But in that day and time, it was just in that little community or that neighborhood, basically, of people talking between each other. And now you can talk around the world. The computers even translate for you into different languages. And so, you know, you would really want to get the word out using your computer will be a blessing. I remember back in the day when we were going to the churches and they were telling the people, cut your cell phones off, don't bring your computers in here, and all of those types of things. And now they've changed that story to text your friend and tell them you're at church and invite them to come to the church. And so they're using the technology to glorify God and lift Him up. And I think that's what it's all about. When God first created man, He put us over everything, the trees, the birds, the bald eagles, all of them. But
be nice. Be nice.
But because of sin, we stepped back, and now we're playing catch up. And so the concept is to be able to catch up, we needed the power of the Holy Spirit. And Jesus Christ provided that empowerment. And we need to know more about Him and be more obedient to Him and what He's called us to do, and to take a stand as His servants. And so the same as we took a pledge when we went into the military, went into law enforcement and those things, we've taken a pledge as accepting Christ in our lives. And in so doing, we need to take that stand and do all that He's called us to do.
And let's talk about the electronic issues. And one of the things that's amazing, if you've watched the show at all, then you know that we're in the studio that is at the First Southern Baptist Church here in Buena Park, in which we have both a church and a sanctuary, because we take care of homeless people. We make sure they're fed, got a place to stay, certainly provide church services for them. And so you know we have this. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to talk about something that was put together on a shoestring budget. This was put together on a shoestring budget. And yet, thanks to the amazing capabilities of electronics nowadays and the internet, and because Pastor Drake was able to get into a working arrangement with Ustream, which is what broadcasts this throughout the world on the internet. And if you go to his website, thewileyDrakeShow.com, and you click on archives up at the top, then you can see all of the shows that were done. But if you want to watch live, then all you have to do is go to Ustream, and that's USTREAM.tv/channel/The Wiley Drake Show, and hit enter. And that will bring you to what is the live show that, even as we speak, we're on there now. And yes, I check it every once in a while just to make sure it's working, and yes, it is. And so we have a pastor in a suburb of Los Angeles that for years has been doing a television show, getting the word out, allowing people to come on and say their piece on the show and do what they want to do on the show. We invite guests. You want to come on to the show, you give me a call. I'm the producer of this show. Although you wouldn't know it given who my guest host is tonight. But anyway, moving right along. So if you ever want to come on the show, all you have to do is text 951-261-0799. Put in the word show and then your name and number, and then I, as the producer, will call you back, find out what you got, and we'll make arrangements to get you on the show. Now, the reason why you have to text me is much like today. I was in a whole bunch of different courts, and they don't like you have your cell phone on when you're in court, so I have to shut it off until I can get done there. And as a result of that, you have to be careful not to get in trouble. So by texting me, then it will save it to my phone, and we won't have any problems with that, and you can get a hold of me. While we're here, let's change subjects. Regardless of whether Trump wins and we have more freedom than we hoped we were going to have, or Hillary Clinton wins and we have to start worrying about learning freedom or losing freedoms, then might be time to get a little more aware of what exactly the Second Amendment is and what you can do with the Second Amendment, and how we can talk about a tyrannical government. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You want to send Hillary Clinton through the roof. Say, Hillary, isn't it true that the reason we have the Second Amendment is so we the people can have guns, so people like you can't take over the government? Oh, with any luck, she'd have either a stroke or a heart attack and get called to be judged by the Lord. And I'm sure there's a very warm place in Hades for her, so she could deal with that. So what we're saying is it's one thing to talk about something, it's another thing to do something about it. And so what we're doing about it is on every month, once a month, our next class coming up November 19th, here at the First Southern Baptist Church of Buena Park. It goes from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a Saturday. We give you coffee and rolls to start out with. We feed you lunch. And then we give you a day's worth of training of what are your rights under the Second Amendment, what is your rights to self-defense under California law, what you can and can't do with a firearm in California. And then we end with some very interesting training where we show you how to take away a handgun, a knife, or an assault rifle from a bad guy. And guess what? It's really easy to do. You can do it. You just got to have some training. And you may think, oh, you guys are nuts. You can't be doing anything like that. Are you out of your mind? Well, if you haven't heard about it, then I will remind you about it. When the San Bernardino terrorist attack happened, because yours truly had been a deputy sheriff for San Bernardino County Sheriff, and I heard what was going down, I said, you know what? I need to go see if I can help. And so I called Pastor, because I knew that he could help, given that he is a member of the Interfaith Disaster Network here in Buena Park, and he is also a certified disaster aid in the First Southern Baptist Church Convention. So I gave him a shout and said, hey, we got bad things happening in San Bernardino. We need to go see if we can help. His daughter and his grandkids live out in that neck of the woods, so needless to say, he was very interested in seeing what was going on. So he and I beat feet over there. We got there, we offered our services, and lo and behold, they drug us in. Now, we're talking about an unbelievably secure facility that they brought us into. This was a building in Hernandez. It was called the Hernandez Building. It was in a park that was north of where the actual shooting had gone down. But by the time we had gotten there, the police was completely surrounded by uniformed San Bernardino County probation officers with machine guns. They would not even let the media into that building. So the media was outside and whining about the fact they wanted to go in and see who was there. But we wanted absolute protection, security, confidentiality for the family members who were waiting to hear what had happened to their loved ones. And so as a result, Pastor Drake got the job of being the main clergy there. He organized other clergymen that showed up, and so they were able to take care of the spiritual needs of the families while we were waiting to hear good news and bad news. Yours truly was made the PIO. And occasionally on television you'll see a fireman and he has a hat that says PIO on it, and you ask yourself, what the heck is that? PIO is Public Information Officer, and they are the ones that are the contact with the media, and they go out and give the media information and take care of the job. So on the one hand, they've got to protect the security of the facility, but on the other hand, they have to recognize under the First Amendment, the media has a right to know things, and we've got to give that information to the media. So I wound up doing more radio and television interviews than I can remember, and was doing my job. Lo and behold, even though this happened almost a year ago, Pastor Drake and I got contacted by the county of San Bernardino. And they said, hi, we'd like to send you all a nice letter of thank you and a certificate of recognition for the work you did at the San Bernardino terrorist attack. And he and I said, well, great, we weren't expecting anything, we're not asking for anything, but if that's what you want to do, by all means. And lo and behold, they sent it to us. And let me tell you, it is amazing what it is. And so we have put it out on the Facebook. We'll probably wind up putting it out on the Facebook again because it's been a while since we've done it. But it specifically says we want to thank you for the services you rendered during the terrorist attack in San Bernardino on December 2nd, 2015. So I was honored to receive that. Pastor Drake was certainly honored to receive it. And it's amazing where, you might say, well, it's just a piece of paper. Yeah, but somebody had to put it together. Somebody had to know who you were. Somebody had to go to all the effort of getting it to you. They even called to make sure they got our name spelled right, which I thought was nice. And they got it to us. So it's not the value of the thing, it's the thought of the thing that I was happy with. And the fact that they specifically referred to Wiley Drake as Pastor Wiley Drake, and referred both to the First Southern Baptist Church of Buena Park and the Congressional Prayer Conference of Washington, D.C., because he held offices in both those institutions, was very nice. So as a result of that, what it did was, believe it or not, we get criticisms from people who say, well, you're not really doing this, and you're not really doing that, and you don't really have a television show, and you're really not who you say you are, etc., etc., etc. And to have a very nice gold embossed document that says you are who you say you are, and we are happy that you are here, then it by all means is a good thing to have, and by all means gives us a little bit of credibility when push comes to shove. Because as you can imagine, we get our fair share from government agencies coming out wanting to see what are happening, whether or not we're doing good, doing bad, and things like that. So as a result of that, the answer is yes, it was nice to get that. One of the other things that's kind of interesting is we're hearing rumors that there are going to be terrorist attacks at various election sites, polling places, generally in the South. And I don't know why they're making the threats in the South. And so I'm wondering, why are they saying that? And what I'm worried about is we know so far that the South has been pro-Trump. And so if I wanted people to be afraid and not go vote at polling places, then by saying, hey, all them polling places in the pro-Trump South are going to be the victims of terrorist attacks, yeah, that'd be an interesting way to interfere with an election. My response is, I don't see it happening. And so my response is, say your prayers, get there early, do your vote, do your duty, and then let's get this problem fixed. Certainly, part of our alert class, which is what you'd be taking on November 19th, is we teach you how to spot a bad guy. And so certainly if you're going to the polling places and you're a little bit worried about are there any bad guys here, apply the same rule that they use at airports now, which is the threat level of orange. And they tell you, if you see somebody that don't look right, if you see a package and nobody's around it, if you hear weird things happening, bring it to somebody's attention so that we can stop that. So
Say something.
see something, say something. Exactly. So as a result of that, that's awareness. And I have a sneaking suspicion that when my co-host went through basic training with the Marine Corps and went through tech training thereafter, I have a sneaking suspicion that that sort of alertness for our first response forces, they probably beat that into your head.
Fortunately, they did, because the whole concept is you're not only looking out for yourself, you're looking out for those that are around you. And in these situations here at our churches, we consider each other family. And so you want to do what is necessary to protect the family in all situations.
Well, and that's one of the other things that we have to look at, and it's one of the things that we have to bear in mind. One of the unbelievably evil things about the Democratic Party, Hillary Clinton and her minions, is how decisive they are, how they want to turn everybody into enemies, how they want to make bad guys, and how they love to blame things on people. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I have friends who have religions that I'm not real enthused about. I have friends who are Catholics. I have friends who are Methodists. I even have a friend who's a Wiccan. Okay, and you want to talk about weird, but certainly I try to minister to them, and certainly I invite them to join the Southern Baptist Church, and certainly any chance I get, I kind of try to help them understand what our doctrine is all about. But am I not going to eat dinner with them? Am I not going to call them? Am I not going to worry about them because their denomination or their religion is a little bit different than mine? Absolutely not. They're still United States citizens. They're still a part of we the people. They still are what makes this America great, because it's a difference of opinion and a difference of approaches that make this country great. And so I get so tired of the decisiveness of Hillary Clinton and how she can't attack Trump about any bad things he did. He certainly hasn't been on an airplane going to Orgy Island like we're now learning her and Bill Clinton went on several occasions. And certainly he wasn't stealing $6 trillion out of the government, which it looks like Hillary Rotten Clinton was doing. So all she can do is say, well, he talks bad about people, and he's decisive, and he doesn't like people. And it's like, really? And one of the things that amazes me about Trump is I have not heard any nice things about Hillary. Not once have I heard where she went out of her way to help somebody and anything about it. Haven't heard it. And yet on my social media, Facebook, which I stay on top of quite a bit, a young couple, put out a story, and I was stunned by the story. And here's what the story was. They were driving down the road, and they see this big black limousine, and it's got a flat tire. And apparently it didn't have the equipment to change the tire. So he's a good old country boy, so he pulls up and he says, "Sir, may I help you?" And the gentleman in the car said yes, and so he gets the jack out of his farm vehicle and he boosts it up and takes the wheel off, his new wheel put on, and he says, "Thank you very much." And the guy in the car says, "Gee, can I have your name and number? I'd like to give you a little thank you note or something." And so they said, "Oh, sure." And so they wrote their name and number on it, and they handed it to him, and that was it, and they left. 3 days later, they get a letter. The letter was from Donald Trump. And the letter said, "Thank you very much for your change of my tire, and your mortgage has been paid off."
Amen.
Now, this happened quite some time ago, but you'll notice that Trump never talked about it, Trump never bragged about it, he never saw it. It was this couple coming forward saying, oh, you want to know what type of guy Trump is? This is the sort of guy that Trump is. Wow. I didn't know what to say. And so it is those sort of stories that amaze me about him. What I do like is, as most of you know, I'm a litigator, I'm an attorney, and I know how expensive and how difficult it is to litigate, go to court, try things. What I like about Trump is he has enough money that if he has to litigate this election because illegal, improper things happen, is he going to be able to afford to do it? Oh, absolutely. And as a result of that, I like the fact that he doesn't obligate himself to anybody. He can't be bought by anybody. They make fun of the fact that he is worth what he's worth. But what he gets with that is freedom from the corruption of Congress and the presidency.
One of the comments I'd like to make is that we were talking earlier, and even now, we're dealing with the same subject, credibility. And Pastor Wiley, his disaster relief card for Southern Baptists and those types of things is the reason why when there's a situation we're able to go in and get through those secure doors that are usually closed out to the public because of our credibility. People know what was done, whether we were in Haiti, what was done in New Orleans when we had the storms and everything there, what was done with the fires in Northern California. Our credibility is what opens the doors, and in serving God increases your credibility. But the fact that people have not recognized Him as the Lord of their lives does not distinguish them or separate them from the things that need to be done in this world. It's just that the credibility is seen from a different avenue. And the fact is, it's not something I'm doing, but it's something God is doing through me.
And you may ask yourself, yeah, what proof do you have? And it's amazing when you're dealing with atheists or agnostics and the like. And they always say, well, what proof do you have that there's a God? And I have debated that issue on more than one occasion. And I give them a very short, sweet, to the point thought. I ask them, do you understand how gigantic and how magnificent the universe is? With the Hubble telescope and some other systems that we have now, we are now seeing things that are, you can't believe it, impossible to believe. We are seeing things that if you try to describe them, they are so magnificent that it's hard to describe. And then I look at them and say, I got a great idea. Why don't you pick up a book about the photographs that have been created by the Hubble telescope and look at all the grandeur and greatness of the universe, and then explain to me how that is all an accident. Somebody explain that to me. How is that all an accident? And if you can explain to me that it's an accident, okay, I'll be impressed. But so far, none of the atheists, none of the agnostics have been able to explain to me, oh yeah, it's an accident. Really? Can't be done. So the other thing I like to say, and I'm going to get yelled at because I say things that are maybe inappropriate, but I'm going to say it anyway. When I debate the issue of God versus no God, you go through your debate and get your introductory statement, and then you do your debate, and you get asked a bunch of questions, and then at the end you're allowed to give your closing statement. And so my closing statement is kind of sort of different. My closing statement is, guess what? If you are correct and there is no God, then I have lived my life according to religious principles. I have tried to be as moral, ethical, honorable as I can be. I help those that I can help. I certainly do nothing to hurt people because that would be inappropriate. a sin, if you want to use that. Lack of morals on the other hand. And I, in my life, have been extremely fortunate in that I've been able to help a lot of people because of what I do. And so as a result, if my religious beliefs is the reason why I was able to help those people, so be it. And if I die and there's nothing on the other side, at least there are people here on this earth that will remember, hey, Davis was a nice guy and he helped us. If, on the other hand, I'm correct and there is a God and you have committed the unforgivable sin of denying His existence and denying His face, guess what? You got a real serious problem. And I'll be waving to you while you're on your way down there. And, nobody's been able to argue against that.
And understand why.
Oh, they get so confused. But
exactly.
What I like to argue with, you want to ask a question? Let me give you a simple question. I'll give this to him because he likes simple questions. Don't hit me. Don't you dare hit me. Next time you deal with an atheist or an agnostic and they want to start making fun of or attacking your religion, ask them a really simple question. Excuse me, what are you afraid of? And let them try to answer that question. What are you afraid of? What is it about the concept of an omnipotent God and a Son who is the Savior of mankind that you are so afraid of? I don't think they're going to give you a good answer. And so, if you want to be an atheist, I don't care. If you want to be an agnostic, okay, fine. If you made your decision, so be it. I'm still going to minister to you, and I'm going to try to talk you into salvation, and I'm going to try to save your soul. But if you are absolutely, positively sure that you want to be an atheist or you want to be agnostic, so be it. I'm not going to threaten you. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm not going to point a gun at you. I'm not going to tell you that I'm going to kill you because you won't practice my religion, much like certain Muslims do. This is the first time we mentioned them today. But I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to run over you in my car. And if you catch fire, I'll certainly throw some water on you to get you put out. But I'm not going to have any physical bad things about you. However, on the other side of the coin, the condition of that is you leave me and my religion alone. I don't want you threatening me. I don't want you threatening my brothers in Christ and my sisters in Christ. I certainly don't want you threatening my church. And I guarantee you that were you to do that, it would probably be unpleasant. And when you look at the very classic image of Christ in Revelations, He is on a white horse, leading a whole bunch of angels on white horses, and He is holding a flaming sword. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? If that is the second coming of Christ, and that's the accoutrements that He has when He gets here, I have a sneaking suspicion He ain't coming here to be nice to you.
Amen.
When we talk about, we're almost out of time here. By the way, is there anybody online? I heard a couple of beeps. I didn't know if somebody was online or not. Is there anybody online? Okay, then we're going to keep moving forward. Here's the problems that we have with Muslims. The problem is that Muslims do not believe in freedom of religion. Can you understand that? Muslims do not believe in freedom of religion. The Quran, the Hadith, the various statements from different imams all say, guess what? If they don't become Muslims, kill them. And it is amazing where you have verses in the Quran who specifically say that. And you'll have somebody that claims, oh, well, I'm a moderate Muslim, I'm a nice guy. And I said, okay, please tell me all the parts of the Quran that you don't believe in and you don't follow. And they'll go, well, we don't do that. We have to believe and follow all of them. So you do believe that it's okay to kill somebody that doesn't become a Muslim. So you believe murder for your faith is a good thing. Is that what you're telling me, Mr. Moderate Muslim? I'll get back to you. Really? So, Sharia law, you look at the people that are trying to argue Sharia law. The women who argue Sharia law have serious mental problems because you become a second-class citizen if you are a woman under Sharia law. If you want to talk about a form of slavery, if you're a woman under Sharia law, you're talking a form of slavery. You can't go somewhere without the male's permission. You can't go out by your lonesome. You got to be totally covered. You cannot drive. You can't work. You can't even go to school. And if that isn't the form of slavery, I don't know what is. And so if you have somebody that says, okay, I'm a woman and I believe in Muslim and I believe in Sharia law, I say, okay, let's go buy a doggy collar, because I'd like to go put a doggy collar on you and walk you down the street and see how happy you are about Sharia law, because I'm a man, you're a woman, and to me you're less than human under Sharia law. How does that sound? They'd probably be unhappy.
Oh, yeah.
But what more can you say? Not that I would ever say anything about Hitchhiker's missus or my missus, but I guarantee you that not only are they treated equally, they might be a little more equal if you kind of sort of understand my drift. I just really a comment and stuff. So one of the other things that we talk about, and it again, I love people that start talking and they obviously are clueless whatsoever, which is, they'll say, oh, well, you guys are Christians, and so you ain't going to fight, and you ain't going to do anything, and you guys are a bunch of wusses, and so we Muslims can kick your butt. And whoa, stop. Okay? What you look at is, go to Luke 22, 36 through 38. And if you listen to the show before, you know that I cite that verse on a regular basis. I will admit that it's one of my favorite verses out of the Holy Bible. And what it is that Christ knows that the crucifixion is coming and things are going to get really bad, and he wants his disciples to be able to survive when things get really bad. Now this is the government coming after Christ, the Pharisees coming after Christ, and so he's giving his disciples advice of how are you going to survive when the government comes after you and when the Pharisees, religious leaders, come after you. And what he tells them is guess what? Get a sword. And if you don't have a sword, sell your garments and buy a sword. And sure enough, they go out and do it. And they come back and said, yes, Lord, we did what you want to do. We got swords. And he said, that's good. That's what you're supposed to do. Okay, now, if Christ is a wuss, and if Christ is not willing to fight for what is right, what in the heck is he doing telling his disciples to go out and buy swords? He didn't say knives, he said swords. Go get the really big things for hurting people, not the little tiny things for hurting people. So he was telling them, you better get ready to kick derriere and take names when things get bad. So that doesn't sound like a wussy Christ to me. That sounds like somebody that says, yeah, peace is a good idea, and we should love one another, and certainly if we can get along, that's great. But he recognized there are times when that ain't going to work, and you're going to have to be ready, willing, and able to defend yourself, and that's what he did. So what he said, pray, prepare, and get armed. And so in light of that advice, that's what we do in both the actual shooting classes that we are associated with. That's a CATS, Civilian Arms Training Source, Level 1, Level 2 courses, where you actually learn how to win a gunfight. Great course, can't say enough about it. But then our course, the Alert course, when you learn what is the laws, rules, regulations, and scriptures on use of force to defend yourself. So that's why we cover that. So as a result of that, Those things are all very important. And we invite you to come get educated. We can tell you that regardless of who wins tomorrow's election, there is going to be a lot of unhappiness. And I don't care if Trump wins. I don't care if Pastor Drake wins, at least in California. He's a write-in for that. Or if Hillary Clinton wins, there are going to be a bunch of very unhappy people, and we're going to see a bunch of very unhappy things. So regardless of whether Republican, Democrat, or somebody else wins, you need to be prepared to protect yourself, protect your family, because I have a sneaking suspicion things are going to get bad. Do you have any comments on that, young man?
Well, without a shadow of a doubt, the direction that we've taken says we're on the wrong side of the road. And we already realize that only God allows U-turns.
That's right.
But you have to STOP. Stop sinning, yield to Him, and He'll put you on the right side of the road, heaven bound, hammer down.
Amen.
Oh, absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, get out and vote. I can tell you that we're going to have special shows tomorrow to cover the election. So you probably will get tired of hearing from us. I know that we were listening to Sean Hannity today, and you want to talk about somebody that's screaming and yelling. He was screaming and yelling. So it was having way too much fun. We do have a gentleman that we're hoping is going to be on the show in the morning. He sounds interesting, and I'll keep that as kind of a surprise. But I can tell you that tomorrow evening, as the polls start closing and we start getting information in, then you're going to hear from us. And then after our show, when we finally decide it's going to close down, you know that the polls will be shutting down 8 o'clock Eastern time. So California is still going to be going. So they generally do not release the actual call of the election until late in the evening. So needless to say, we're going to be up until that happens. But we invite you to call into the show. We invite you to watch the show. We certainly want to hear your thoughts on it. And we're going to keep pushing this sin and duty to vote. And it's a sin if you violate that duty and don't vote. And so you're going to get tired of hearing us saying that. So unless somebody else has something, I'm going to call it a wrap and ask our very important individual who knows how to shut the camera off, because I don't, Dr. Wiley Drake, to shut the camera off. And I'm going to hit on to Facebook and start sending out some interesting texts.
First of all, let me say thank you to these two men that took over for me today, and they gave me a relief, gave me an opportunity to do some other things, correct one of the mistakes that I made, and that is not having an extra key for our van, and we lost our key, and so we had to get another key made. So that was the first thing that got me sidetracked, and then I was glad also, even though that was done and taken care of, that they would give me a break. And by the way, I think it also is a little break for those of you who watch me regular. It's good to see a fresh face now and then, and to hear some fresh ideas. So,
Especially when it's in color.
especially when it's
Oh, Lord.
we've got the two biggest punsters in the world, I think, here on the Wiley Drake Show. But that's all right. I'm glad that he can joke and he can joke. And with that in mind, we're going to say, is there anybody else on the prayer line?
We asked and haven't had anybody respond. We got a lot of beeps and stuff, but nobody came on.
Okay, all right. Well, let's do this then. Let's just say, let me give each of you a closing remark. I'm going to start with James. Give your closing remark, and then with the other James. Both of them. James Stephen Davis and James L. McCullough. So James number 1 with no hair. Then we'll go to James number 2 with hair. So go ahead.
The proof that God has a sense of humor. Platypuses and aardvarks.
Amen.
Over to you.
Over to you.
God bless and God keep.
All right. Amen. Good night and God bless.